right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai Bashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And honor and salutations to those of you who are of the hopeful elect and are out there teaching the word of sincerity and truth. All right, so I wanted to get into this clip here. I'm sure by now most people have seen it. It's just this woman here going on a rant about about us. I'm not gonna say GMS in particular, because she touched on a couple of different camps, but yeah, she's speaking to the men on the highways and byways, and she's calling them self-made street scholars, and she's speaking to the 12 tribe chart, saying that it's false, and making all these claims. I was gonna play it, but I don't wanna play the video. I really don't care to hear her say anymore. But what I will do is say what she spoke to and what I want to address and what she said. Matter of fact, before I forget, yep. Let's see. Yep. Okay. So I pulled that up for a reason. You'll see in just a second, but it came to me while I was talking about her. But one thing she said was that that the 12 tribes chart is false, and that they put together that sign for money purposes, which it doesn't make much sense. But she said that because of that sign, that you got the street preachers or street scholars bringing in white people, letting white people read the Bible, right? And so that's what I primarily wanted to speak to. The idea that a so-called white person can't be an Israelite, and I want to expand that out into a so-called East Indian looking person, a so-called Arab looking person. For some reason, this woman and a lot of people like her think that we can't have people that look like the other nations that are indeed Israelites. And where that comes from is a gross understanding of history, a gross understanding of genealogy and genetics, right? And ultimately a gross misunderstanding of the scriptures. And this is why we have this confusion in the world, right? So let me read that scripture that I just pulled up. I'm gonna read that first. All right, so this is Matthew 13, and I'm gonna start at 24. It says, "Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field, right? But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in the field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Right? And here's the point. Let both grow together unto the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles, and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Right? And so throughout history. So I did a show on. I left a bunch of the stuff up here because I just did a show on it a couple days ago uh, about the different diasporas that has happened um, to our nation. Right, some being due to slavery, some being due to the fleeing persecution, I should say, and some being that um, there may be work opportunities in other provinces and countries and nations, and your trade might take you to these different places. Militarily, you might have gone to another place to be stationed, right? And so these diasporas have happened throughout history to our people, the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. Matter of fact, let's do this. We just spoke about this too at camp. So let me do this. James 1. All right, this is James 1 and 1. It says, James, a servant of the Most High and of the Lord Yahushua HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Greeting, right? So when you look up that word scattered, you get the word diaspora or diaspora, right? Let's play it.
Strong's G1290. Diaspora. Diaspora.
Right? Which means a scattering, a dispersion of Israelites dispersed among foreign nations, of the Christians scattered abroad among the Gentiles, right? And so our people, as we know, were scattered everywhere, right? The Babylonian Empire, the Persian Media Empire, the Grecian Empire, the Roman Empire, all had provinces where there were Israelites, right? Let me see. What is that? What is that? Let me go back here. What scripture is that? Yeah, Acts 18. So let me read this real quick. This is Acts 18 and 1. It says, after these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth, and found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy, right? With his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome, and came unto them, right? So here it is, this man is born in Pontus, right? Let's look that up. Ancient Pontus, right? Northern Turkey. Let's go in here, right? So if you look, this is modern day Turkey, right? Or Asia Minor as it's called in the scriptures. And here is Pontus, right? Now, let's open this one because it shows a little bit of Israel in there, right? So Pontus would have been here, right? And here's Israel, right? So here you have this man, or Pontus right here. I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. Just open it. Oh, it's gonna go here. I don't want to do that. Right? So Pontus is here, and Israel is here, right? But here you have this Jew or this Israelite being born in Pontus, right? Right? And then not only was he born in Pontus, right, which is northern Turkey, but it said that he was lately come from Italy, which is all the way over here, right? So here it is, this man was born in Pontus, right? But he had lately come from Italy, right? So meaning what? That our people were all through these lands, right? Which I showed in the last show. Let me see if I have one of these maps pulled up still. Right? Here's the Seleucid Empire, which was where this is during the four generals that took over after Alexander. So you got the Ptolemaic, which is west, the Seleucid Empire, which is in the east, right? But our people were all in through these lands. The proof of that is if you go to Esther, the first chapter, it'll tell you that Ahasuerus ruled over 127 provinces from India all the way to Ethiopia, which is right around here, right? And then it tells you in the third chapter how the letters were written in to all these provinces in their languages, right? So that they could kill all the Jews that were in these lands, right? So our people were all over here. And not only here in this image you see, but over into the west too, in Italy, right? Here's Greece here and all the Grecian islands, right? So our people were all in through there, right? And I think what gets overlooked, right? With this being said, with our people being in all these places, let me go back to James real quick. What gets overlooked with our people being dispersed in all of these places is that when you are in these places, what are you gonna do? You're gonna set up a life in those places. Meaning what? You're gonna find a wife. You're gonna have children. You're gonna have a home, right? And so if you're there for generation upon generation upon generation, what's gonna happen? Your descendancy is gonna start to not only act like the nations that they're amongst, right? As the old saying goes, when in Rome, do as the Romans. But they're also going to start to look like them, especially if you've taken on wives of those other nations, right? Which is a part of what the Lord commanded us not to do, right? Matter of fact, I think I have that pulled up here. Yep. Let me see. Yep. Yep. Let me start at 1 here. This is Deuteronomy 7:1. It says, "When the Lord thy power shall bring thee into the land, whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou," which were Hamite nations, right? Which is another thing that this lady said. She thinks that we're African, and that and she takes offense to the fact that we say we're not African, right? But here it is in the scriptures here, right? Quite clearly. Okay. So it says, "And when the Lord thy power shall deliver thee, shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son." Right? So this was the commandment, right? This is what was commanded of us when we were to go into this land, right? But as we know, as the story carries on and the story continues all the way up to modern day history, we did this anyway. We did this anyway, and we joined to these nations by marriage. We joined to these nations by cultural pickups, right, and practices. And so these things happen throughout history. And so you have to understand that when that happens, you're going to start to look like the people that you're marrying into, right? And so when you get to today, when you have a man who is an Israelite, but may look like a so-called white person, we understand that that is a possibility, right? We understand that that can happen. Which brings me to this clip. So I was looking for a clip in particular, and I'm really frustrated that I couldn't find it. But this documentary, the history of Britain in black and white, I couldn't get it without paying for it. I wasn't about to pay for that shit. Especially when I got the fucking app that they say it will play on. But whatever, I'm not gonna. That's neither here nor there. But I wanted to get the specific clip from this documentary, and I've been talking about it since I found it. I think I did a show on it once before, but I didn't think to do that, to go back to see if I had the clip of one of those shows. But the guy who did this documentary, his name is David Olusoga, I think it is how you pronounce it, somewhere in here. David Olusoga, I think is how you pronounce his name, right? And he did this documentary to talk about the black presence, or the African presence in England, right? And if you know history, right, if you go into the history, some of the people in England were actually African or Hamite people, But most of us, especially those who bear the name Britain, which means covenant man, right? We're talking about Israelites that were in that land and established the early days of England, right? But in the interview in this particular clip, he's interviewing this guy right here, which when you look at him, looks like a so-called white man, right? But if my memory serves me correctly, this guy is a descendant of this guy right here, this name right here, which is Francis Barber, which was a Jamaican who came to England by way of some writer. I forget the writer's name. I should have looked all of this stuff. Well, it's not that I looked it up, but I closed it because I wanted to free up some of the space up here. But anyway, you can look this up. You can look this piece up because this is not the important part of it. But Francis Barber was a Jamaican who was brought over here to England as a servant, right? And in his servitude became friends with this writer, right? And when he came to England, he set up shop. I didn't want to do that. I'm getting excited here. Let me just get back to where I was right here. So, in his travels to England, obviously he sets up shop, has a wife, has children, and this guy here is a descendant of that man, right? So of course he doesn't look quite like him. Now this looked like a pure Edomite, but still, right? Still with that being said, still looks like a so-called white man. And then when you add the British accent, you get this feel of a so-called white person is talking to you, right? But he is a descendant, right? You see this picture in here. He ends up showing this guy, David Olusoga, this picture saying that he's the great grandson so many generations removed from that man, right? But look what he looks like. You can see how dark the man is here in that picture. But here he is looking like a so-called white man, right? And so this is what you have when you see these men across the country and across the world that look like so-called white people or look like so-called East Indian, that look like so-called Arab. When they look like this and they still are reading the scriptures with us, that's because we understand that it very well may be that they are Israelites, right? And like the parable said, let them both grow together until the reapers come, right? We don't know who's who, but we try the spirit by the spirit. And if that man is in the spirit to believe that he's an Israelite and he's sincere about that and he's reading the scriptures, there's no harm there, because you cannot be against the Lord, but only for him, man. And the scriptures tell you that, right? So I'm going to play a little bit of this. I want to cite fair use here because I don't want to be flagged, but I want to show you a couple of these people. So this is another person. She's going to tell you that she's a 5th generation black person in England, but look at her. What does she look like? Got freckles and all that, right? Well, she looked like Jake though. You can see it, but some might say, look at her hair, right? Some might say that she's a so-called white person, right? I just want to play what she says here.
I'm a 5th generation black person, and what my great-grandparents went through really paved the way for everything I am today.
Right. So she's a 5th generation black person, right? But she doesn't look like it, right? She looks like a so-called white person, or she could even pass as an Ishmaelite, right? She can even pass as a what are them fucking them Kardashian girls, whatever they are. Not Somalian. What are they? Whatever they are. She could even pass as one of them, right? But she's a Jake, man. She's an Israelite. You can see it. You can even see it, right? She look like one of them, maybe the Latin tribes, right? But you can imagine when her grandparents or her great grandparents that she's talking about here, the 5th generation, that she's the 5th generation of, probably looked just as dark as this guy over here or these guys over here, right? So I want to show you this other lady that's in here. She's clearly an Israelite, but let me go to this one and show you what she says.
I'm the 7th generation descendant of a 10-year-old boy brought on the slave ships to this country.
10-year-old boy brought on the slave ships to this country. 10th generation. Oh no, what did she say? 7th generation? Let me go back. See what she said.
This country brought descendant, a generation The seventh generation descendant
Seventh
of
generation.
a 10-year-old boy brought on the slave ships to this country.
Now look at her. Now she looked like a white woman, right? And I mean, if you you look a little bit longer, she starts to look like one of the Latin tribes, maybe even Gad, right? But she could pass, and especially in England, as a so-called white person, and she probably lives her life like a so-called white person, right? She's probably had certain privileges in England as a so-called white person, but she's a descendant of a little black boy that came on a slave ship to that country. Imagine that. 7 generations removed. This is only 7 generations, right? It's only 7 generations. So imagine how many other people that are even more generations removed from their so-called darker heritage, right? They'll look even lighter or even more white or even more like the nations that they're around, right? So this is why you have these so-called white people that you see in our camps, right? And so what makes a person uh, 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 a nationality, right? You are a nationality based on the seed of your father, right? Which is what we understand about the Lord Yahweh Shai. So I got this up here, right? There's a couple that I have, but I want the one in Romans. Yeah. So this is Romans 1 and 3. It says, concerning his son Yahweh Shai HaMashiach our Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh, right? And this is how he received the kingship, right? He is the king of Israel because he is of the seed of David, right? And so he can only be the king if he was born of the kingly line, right? And so I want to look this up. That word seed there. What do you got? Sperma.
Strong's G 4690. Sperma.
Mm-hmm.
Sperma.
Right, which is seed, right? From which a plant germinates, the seed, i.e., the grain or kernel, which contains within itself the germ of the future plants, right? Of the grains or kernels sown, metaphorically, a seed, i.e., a residue or a few survivors reserved as the germ of the next generation, right? Just as seed is kept from the harvest for the sowing. The semen, virile, right? The product of this semen, seed, children, offspring, progeny, family, tribe, posterity, whatever possesses vital force or life-giving power, right? Of divine energy of the Holy Spirit operating within the soul by which we are generated, right? But we know that the seed of David means what? The sperm of David. So the man unto the man unto the man, which you can read in let's see. Where do I want to use? What do I want to use? I'll use this one. So this is Matthew 1 and 1, right? It says the book of the generation of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham, right? Let's see what that word generation pulls up. Oh, Genesis, like the beginning. Source, origin, right? A book of one's lineage, right? I.e., in which his ancestry or progeny are enumerated, right? Used of birth, nativity, right? Very simple. So when you look in here, what do you have? Judas begat Phares, Zerah, Thamar, right? Aram, Aminadab, right? So you get all of these men to give the lineage of the Lord Yahweh Shai, right? All the way down to his father, Joseph, right? And so that's how you get to be a man of a certain nation, right? And so when you get to these people, right? And then this man here, I wish I could find that clip, man. It was so good. It was so good. Because what they were talking about in particular part, let me just want to pull up his face again. What they were talking about in this particular part, when he was interviewing this guy here, they were saying that the black population in this guy's town, the town that he lived in, has kind of disappeared. And so the point that David Olusoga is trying to push is that they didn't disappear. but they're hidden within the white population because they look white now. And I wish I could have found that clip, man. I've been searching for the last couple of days trying to find this clip, um, but I can't find it. But the point still remains, right? You know, this guy is telling you like, look, I'm a descendant of a Jamaican, right? Which is the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, and he looks today like a so-called white man, and probably, again, like I said about the lady, lives the life of a so-called white person. If you saw my kids are light skinned, right? Same deal, right? And so this is it. I hope the point was made. I hope it was edifying. I want to give all praises as always to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Rakah Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and honor and salutations to the hopeful elect. And with that, I say shalom.